In Greece, it still held only Athens, Thessaloniki, Nicopolis, and Corinth. Several smaller towns held as well, but their land connection with Constantinople was interrupted. The dark ages of the early medieval period encompassed Greece, to last until the end of the 8th century. The age of Slavic domination had begun. A few years later, around 618, the second wave of Slavs came, mostly Pannonian tribes. They settled lands from the Middle Danube, valleys of rivers Morava and Vardar, all the way to the present-day Macedonia. They encountered cities that were already destroyed and settlements that were already abandoned. Refugees from Naissus, Sardica, and other areas all gather in Thessaloniki in 618. It seemed like the doomsday for the Roman rule in Illyricum. The Slavic wave that spilled across the Danube, practically without any resistance, and moving all the way to the most distant parts of the Balkan Peninsula, was possible because at the time the Emperor Heraclius waged a difficult war against Persia. At the same time, Persian armies stood across from Constantinople, having already taken Syria and Egypt. Byzantium was reduced to the provinces in Asia Minor. Following the 10 years of war and the reforms in the military and administrative structure of the empire, Heraclius managed to finally defeat Persians, take their capital, Dastagerda, and conclude peace at the very favorable terms. There was no danger from Persia anymore, but the price paid was Illyricum, which was in 628 almost entirely held by the Slavic tribes. Historical sources on the conditions in Illyricum during this period are very scarce. According to the Miracles by Demetrius of Thessaloniki, a bit more is known about the Slavs who settled in the vicinity of Thessaloniki. The tribes were Drogovites, Sagodites, Rinchines, and Strimones. It is known that the Velegezites, who lived around ancient Demetriade, contemporary Volos, were on good terms with the inhabitants of Thessaloniki and provided them with food during the Slav siege between 674 and 677. In 723, on his journey to the Holy Land, the priest Willibald stopped in Monemvasia on the eastern shore of the Peloponnesus and claimed the city to be on the Slavic land. The Byzantine chronicler Theophanes, writing in the early 9th century, provided some interesting news on the Slavs from Macedonia. Even with all the fragmentary nature of our data, one could still compile an image of the Illyricum as the land inhabited by Slavs and where the Byzantine imperial rule extended only to few large cities. The most important points of Byzantine authority and civilization were cities in Dalmatia: Zadar, Split, Trogir, Ragusa, Kotor, Budva, Ulcinj, Ljesh, and Iracium. We do not know anything about the interior of the Illyricum and the destiny of its inhabitants. From the patchy historical sources available, we know that a number of original inhabitants remained in rural areas and kept some of the ideals of the old Christian world. Throughout the next several centuries, the contact with these inhabitants will be very important for the development of Slavs. This probably brought them in contact with Christianity, as well as with terminology of occupations previously unknown to them. In 628, as Heraclius completed his exhausting war against Persia, Illyricum must have looked very sad for the educated contemporaries. After more than 50 years of relentless battles, it was left to Slavs, and the rule of the Romaeus emperor reduced to a handful of cities which were connected to other parts of the empire only by sea. Heraclius had the task of doing something in order to re-establish Byzantine rule in these lands. It was also significant that the big combined Avar-Slav siege on Constantinople failed in 626, which was followed by unrest in the Avar territories, as well as the conflict between barbarians, Avars and Slavs. These military and political circumstances forced Heraclius to try to find allies that would once and for all stop Avar intrusions across the Danube and permanently protect the northern borders of the empire. After several years of diplomacy, Byzantium got in contact with Serbs and Croats, two militaristic but well-organized tribes, with whose help the danger from the north will be removed forever.